I'm Dawn Hill, host of Heart, Mind, and Purpose, a podcast where we explore what it means to live an aligned and wholehearted life. I am a professional counselor with over 25 years of experience and a deep love for meaningful conversation. I bring you honest reflections, soulful questions, and meaningful tools for managing life. Whether you're seeking clarity, connection, or simply a space to breathe, this podcast is here for you. Tune in weekly and join me on the journey.
Welcome to Heart, Mind, and Purpose, a podcast exploring the tools we carry for emotional, spiritual, and relational growth. Hi, this is Paul Gramercy, producer of today's episode, where Dawn will be talking about vocation, not as a job title or fixed identity, but as a deeper sense of calling that shifts through different seasons of life. Maybe you're just starting out, stepping back to raise children, navigating a transition, or reimagining your next chapter. Wherever you are, your vocation is still alive and present. Now here's your host, Dawn Hill.
Today we're talking about something that touches so many of us, vocation. And I don't just mean career here. I'm talking about the deeper, soulful sense of calling. Because when we talk about vocation, we're not just talking about what you do to earn a paycheck. It's that deeper inner sense of, this is what I'm meant to do. It is the work or the craft or the calling that draws you in, the thing you are willing to give your energy, your dedication, and even a piece of your heart to. Whether it's your career, your main role in life, or trade that you've honed over years, vocation is about purpose meeting practice. If someone asked you what you're called to do, what would you say right now without overthinking it? Vocation shifts, especially in transitional seasons of our life. You may have stepped back from work to raise children. You may be re-entering the workforce after raising children. You may be navigating midlife, or you may be even coming out of a long season of change. And in those times, many of us quietly ask ourselves, what is my purpose now? If you've ever asked that question, you are not alone. It's one of the most honest human questions we can ask. Has there been a season in your life where your purpose felt blurry, or like it was just shifting under your feet? This question, what is my purpose now, often comes up after seasons like stepping back to take care of children or aging parents, changing careers, feeling restless or stuck, or after what I like to call post-crisis or a post-deconstruction season. Post-crisis is that season after a big life event like illness, loss, divorce, burnout, or dramatic life transition. It's when you're figuring out, how do I move forward? Here are a few of those what now moments after life has been turned upside down. After an illness, coming home from the hospital after major surgery and realizing recovery is going to take months of slow steps. Rebuilding stamina, adjusting to routines, and figuring out what healthy looks like now. Or after divorce, learning how to cook for one, navigating holidays with kids on a new schedule, starting to rebuild confidence in who you are outside of that relationship. Or after job burnout, you've quit that job that drained you, but now you're unsure what's next. Do you jump back in, or do you need to pause and rediscover what actually matters? Post-deconstruction is what happens after you've questioned, dismantled, or let go of beliefs you once held, often around identity, faith, or meaning. It is the rebuilding phase after doubt or spiritual unraveling. Here are a few examples about how identity or meaning may have been shaken or need to be re-examined. There's an identity shift years after defining yourself as mainly a mom, a dad. The kids have launched, and now you're asking, who am I now? Or a shift in work and or rethinking purpose. You're realizing that the career ladder that you've been on and been climbing doesn't actually align with your values anymore, and wondering what new path could fit. Post-crisis and post-deconstruction, when you put those two together, you get rebuilding seasons. Times when you're no longer in the crisis or the unraveling, but you're not quite back to normal. You're living in the new version of your life, your values, and maybe even your faith. Here are a few examples of the overlap space, the messy middle in between of loss, unraveling, and new growth. You're widowed, but now you're learning how to enjoy Saturday mornings again, maybe with friends, maybe with a new hobby, still carrying grief, but also finding refreshing joy. You've moved into a new city after a painful layoff, and now you're slowly planting roots, meeting neighbors, and finding a new coffee shop, cautiously trying new work. If you are in one of those rebuilding seasons right now, what's one word that could describe it for you? The word vocation comes from the Latin word vocare, which means to call. It's not just about what you do, it's about how you're called to be. This is one of my favorite quotes, and it comes from Frederick Buechner, an American author, and he writes, "Vocation is where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet." I love that. It's just a different way to think about it, that you could be glad in the needs that are presented to us here on the planet, like having a job, a vocation, feeling called to do something. Those two things can meet, because vocation can be expressed in so many ways. Through your work, yes, but also through your relationships, your creativity, your service, and even the way you simply show up in the world. What's one thing, big or small, that brings you deep gladness right now? Think about that for a little while. You deserve to pay attention to it. Vocation will evolve with our life seasons. Your purpose isn't lost. It may just look different now. Raising children, tending to a home, or even resting, these can all be deeply vocational. And there's freedom in adapting to how you live out your values and your call in each chapter of your life. For my own life, I can think back personally when we were young and first married. Everything was important. Our values were important. We were on a mission field in a war-torn country, and the things we were doing were valuable, and there was a call there. And then we decided to add children to our life, and there was a new call there, and it was just as valuable as the first call, but different. And as we raised our children through different developmental seasons of their life and our lives, because we were growing up too, we had to adjust, and they were all important, they were all valuable, they all had a different call, but none was greater than the other. But they did shift and change with us over time. And then we come into a new season of our life, and that one sometimes brings us the question, what do I do now? What is my purpose now? And if we can sit and be still and be a little reflective and look back to the different seasons you've been through thus far, you can see those values, and it might help you in the present moment to hear that voice of what the call is now in this season. Give yourself permission to see your current season as vocational and what that will change for you. There are some common myths about vocation, and I'd like to take a few minutes just to discuss those. Some of those myths can really trip us up. They say things like, in our head, like, if I step away, I lose my purpose. Vocation has to be public or impressive, and if I was really called, I wouldn't feel so unclear sometimes. And here's one of the big things that I've seen over my 25 years of working with people, and honestly in my own life. Moralizing gets in there and it mixes things up about what is my purpose now. It can sound like, what if I choose the wrong job? My life will be wasted. I'll be less than others. I won't be good enough. I won't earn enough. I'll fail my family and I'll fail myself. That pressure can paralyze us. I think about moralizing and how it seeps into really quiet areas of our life that don't seem that big. They're kind of benign, but people get stuck over moralizing on how to load a dishwasher. There's a right and a wrong way, which actually isn't true. People just have different ways. Some people are going to fill it with 2 or 3 things and call it done and start it. And other people like me are going to say, that's not very efficient, and I think we can get more in there, so let's do that. And with my husband and I load it because I like it efficiently, and he unloads it because then he doesn't have to worry about if he's done it right or wrong. But we laugh about that now because there is no right or wrong. It's about how you define how you want to run your dishwasher. Same thing with laundry. People will get stuck around that. Am I doing the laundry right? How many days do I have to do it? Like, there's a lot of questions. And probably my most relatable example is I use like the grocery store. A lot of people can get stuck anywhere in the grocery store, but I'm going to pick on the produce section and imagine standing in front of all the apples, because there can be a lot of different kinds. And people will stand there and get stuck in, what if I don't buy the right apple? What if this is the wrong apple? Will the family eat it? Will it just get rotten? Will I have wasted our money? Well, no, and the pressure and the anxiety build, when really there's not a right or wrong apple. In that moment, if we can learn to just feel the anxiety and say, okay, I'm about to moralize something that isn't right or wrong. It's about wisdom. My family don't like this kind of apple, so I should probably look at another kind. Oh, yeah, we love this one, and it fits in our budget. That's the apple I'll get. And you can move through the grocery store doing the same thing over and over, and it doesn't become so much pressure, because a lot of people hate to shop because they're in the store and they're looking at every purchase as right or wrong. I think there are right or wrong things in life. I'm going to stand on one of mine. I think it's going to always be wrong for me to murder someone. It's just not okay. That is a moral thing in my mind. However, these other things are not moral things, but we do tend to get stuck in moralizing. And when that happens in little areas of our life, like laundry or dishwashers or buying apples, it can really show up loud and be a big presence in something that's so important, like a vocational question. What am I called to? So maybe the question really is, what is my purpose or vocation now? Because it does change with the seasons of our life. Sometimes it's a lifelong career. Sometimes it's a job that simply pays the bills and gives you space to pursue your passions, whether that's taking annual trips, going on mission work, hang gliding, or simply having the margin just to rest and reassess what's important to you. Which of those myths do you most recognize in yourself, and what might it look like if you released it? If you're wondering what your vocation looks like in this season, here are some questions to sit with. What brings me a sense of purpose? Where am I being invited to show up? What feels deeply true and not just urgent? Where do I fit best? And be practical here. If you're a licensed electrician, you're probably not going to want to apply to be a rocket scientist unless you go back to school for it. But maybe that's your next calling, your next chapter. Consider practices like journaling, spiritual direction, therapy, prayer, or talking with trusted people you know well. Take some time to ponder. Which of those practices could you try this week to help you listen for your calling? Remember, you can sit and ponder on your questions more than one time, and it's not right or wrong. It's just what you need to do. Thank you for joining me for this honest conversation about vocation. I hope you leave today with more grace for yourself and more trust that your calling isn't lost. It's simply evolving with you. Sometimes our purpose speaks loud and clear. Other times it whispers while we're doing the dishes or rocking a child to sleep. Wherever you are, trust that your life still holds deep meaning, even if the form has changed. If this podcast resonated with you, I'd love to hear how vocation is showing up or shifting in your life. Until next time, may you be kind to your heart, clear in your mind, and grounded in your purpose. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Heart, Mind, and Purpose with Dawn Hill. We hope today's conversation gave you a new way of seeing vocation, not as something you lose or outgrow, but as a living call that stays with you through every season. If this episode encouraged you, share it with a friend, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's ahead. Until next time, may you keep listening for your calling and living it with freedom and joy. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for a future episode, connect with Dawn at dawnmariehill.com under the Heart, Mind, and Purpose tab. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.